peaceful, so serene. I mean, there's no speeding hedgehogs, there's no CG animals, but it's still peaceful. I mean, that's what these movies did have, and I like that. Oh, hey! Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Movie Versus, where I, Raj Chetta, pick two movies that were recently released, pin them against each other, and decide on which is the better film. Let's get into it. This is Movie Versus. Today's episode will feature Sonic the Hedgehog and The Call of the Wild. Sonic the Hedgehog is directed by Jeff Fowler and is written by Pat Casey and Josh Miller. It stars Jim Carrey, James Marsden, Tika Sumpter, and Ben Schwartz as Sonic. The film is about a blue hedgehog from another world whose powers get discovered by the U.S. government, who sent a lone crazed scientist named the Riddler. I mean Ace Ventura. Nope. Crap. The Mask. No. Sorry. Dr. Robotnik. Yeah, there it is. Dr. Robotnik. So Sonic requires the aid of a lone sheriff who help him on his quest to finding a home while also trying to evade this Dr. Eggman. This was a huge treat for many video game fans, as if you don't know, this is based on one of the most iconic video game characters of all time from Sega, and it was shockingly good. Like, it was fun, it was exciting, it was full of action, and it was full of heart, and an incredible amount of humor. I was really, really pleasantly surprised by this. The performances are really well handled. Ben Schwartz delivers as Sonic. He was light. He was completely filled with energy, and I really love that. And his chemistry with him and James Marsden's Thomas, who, let's be honest, is a frankly generic character, but his straight man works really, really well for this super energetic speeding ball of blue light. It worked really, really well, and it was the major highlight. Another major highlight for me was Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was Jim Carrey from the 90s. A character, like, his performance was definitely an homage to both Ace Ventura, Riddler, and all of those crazy characters he played back then. I haven't seen him done something like this since then, and I'm really glad I did. He was really, really funny, really energetic, and his playoffs towards other characters like Sonic, of course, as well as his henchmen, really, really funny. So glad that he was cast as Dr. Robotnik. I couldn't imagine anybody else playing him, seriously. The effects team needs to be given major props, seriously. They did a fantastic job in not only listening to the fans, but delivering a much better design. Just look at this. Look at the differences, man. It's The film was originally supposed to release back in November of 2019, but because of how bad the design was and how many people, including myself, complained that the design looked nightmare, like it's nightmare fueled incarnate. It was, God, I can't even imagine what the film would have looked like if they used this design. I swear it would have been not as good, to be honest. But the fact that they did, that Jeff Fowler took that amount of energy within the last year, just dedicating it to making sure that the film was enjoyable as hell, major props to everybody. Seriously, oh, I couldn't be any more impressed. Seriously, great job. Seriously. Um, but aside from that, the film itself is just massively entertaining. It was a total blast from start to finish, from the from the opening till, of course, the very end. It was a total blast to watch. The characters alone are actually quite fun to watch. Actually, they weren't pulling off jokes for the sake of jokes. Well, it is a funny picture, sure. I wouldn't say they were like, emulating what the Smurfs movies were doing for a long time, where they just bring a bunch of characters from a fictional world into our world, and they have to deal with a human adult of sorts, and they go through this weird set of events that make no sense. Here, the events actually make a lot of sense, especially towards the very end, where I'm not going to say anything, no spoilers, just watch the movie. The only major flaw I do have is, well, the movie is kind of predictable. Like, the plot is not very original. Like, basically, it's a really better version of the Smurfs movie, where a cast of colorful aliens come from another world who have to seek the aid of a couple of adults who are trying to run away from this crazed maniac. But Sonic is more fun. It's action packed. It's filled with heart, filled with character, as opposed to those god awful Smurf movies. So there's that. The audience reception of this is apparently 95%, and I agree. Sonic the Hedgehog, for me, gets a solid A. Really, really love the film. Do go check it out. But now it's time to jump towards another shockingly good movie. That's Call of the Wild. Call of the Wild is directed by Chris Sanders and is written by Michael Green. It's based on the iconic novel by Jack London, with the same name, of course, and it stars Harrison Ford, Dan Stevens, Omar Sy, and Karen Gillan. The film is about the CGI Saint Bernard named Buck, who gets stolen from his home life and is transported to a completely unrecognizable world and has to find his place in the world, a new home, a new master. The film is, just like Sonic, really, really shocking of how good it really is. The characters are well-rounded, they're dynamic, they're, the character of Buck is the main focus. Not on a speeding Blue Devil, not on some... No, this is focusing on an actual dog that just so happens to be CGI, which is a major flaw for me because the CGI, while impressive, is a bit uncanny. Like almost every animal is CG, which I don't mind, especially if you don't want any animal rights groups going after you. This is the perfect way to do it. Plus, there's various scenes where the animals do get treated really, really badly. So thank goodness that real animals weren't used for the making of the film. So I have to give them props for that. But they could have done a little bit of a better job in making them how they run in motion when they're like running super fast or doing something crazy. But if they're like in motion, if they're like walking like really, really slowly, it works. But for the most part, when they're like moving around, it just didn't sell it for me. The other major flaw I have is whenever there's a villainous character, you can tell they're going to be causing problems here. And I'm like, especially towards the third act, they're like, I'm wondering whether if they added that as a last minute addition because there wasn't enough threats in this movie. Probably, I don't know. I haven't read the book. I actually do want to read it myself now because I found this really, really interesting. The journey that this one dog goes through. That's one thing that they did really, really right. The villain part they did not do right. I felt like it was just like tacked on. especially towards the very end, where like I had this feeling that this character is going to do something that I'm going to hate, and I was right. I'm like, yeah. If you've seen the movie, you would know what I'm talking about. Like throughout this entire moment, like I mean, everything was all nice and dandy, but like something about it was just like it's like false hope. You know what I mean? But aside from that, this was this was really well done. Like I said, the journey Buck goes through is shockingly profound. It's inspiring. It's beautiful. It's breathtaking. The cinematography is gorgeous, and it helps reflect the journey that Buck goes through. I have no other words to say, but I'm giving this an A minus. Like, I mean, like if the CGI was a bit better and the villains were done properly, I would have given it a higher grade. But because the villains were not so subtle and pretty obvious, and the CG was kind of hit and miss at certain places, I have to give it an A minus. The journey was the most important thing for me, as well as his connection with other characters like Harrison Ford, who of course did a fantastic job. You can't go wrong with Harrison Ford. And I'm not the only one who thinks this, I guess, because 90% of the audience like this movie as well. So, but unfortunately, there can only be one victor. The second movie versus winner is clearly Sonic the Hedgehog. I wish it was The Call of the Wild, but it's clearly Sonic. But here's the thing: I love both movies. I do recommend you check both of them out. They're both worth their time, trust me. But in the context of this show, I have to give it a one winner and one winner only, and that's clearly Sonic the Hedgehog. But that's it for now. That's all the time I have for you up until the next episode. I'll see you on the next episode of Movie Versus. See ya.